Knoxville, Tennessee, home to America's newly created National Forensic Academy. Here, 15 crime scene investigators will learn from reconstructions of real crime scenes. They'll spend 10 weeks studying blood, bodies, and bombs.
Fire in the hole!
You're go at throttle up. If you can safely do it, go.
I'm tired of this. Allah Akbar!
Crime scene investigators say, our day begins when your day is over. And after this masterclass, they'll even be able to hear dead men talking.
In 1996, Josie Russell was the only survivor of a crime that shocked and transfixed the nation. A crime that killed her mother and her little sister and left Josie herself for dead. As Josie healed, her floppy hats hid her scars and she became a national symbol of courage and resilience. This is Josie's story. The story of her remarkable recovery and a journey with her father to find her roots.
Now we're going to go right past the very first house that Glenn and I ever bought.
Oh, there it is. It's nice. Was it pink? Oh,
No, it was white before.
what boring person you are.
No, let me show you a picture. That's us, look, there I am, 23 years old. Lynn's 23 as well.
23. You went
23.
to Africa when you were like...
23, just babies.
Ask those boys that used to live there.
Shall I ask them? Shall I tell them I used to live there? I used to live here.
Okay.
My house.
Okay.
1976.
Okay.
This is my daughter called Josie, and I'm bringing her here back to see where she was born.
Okay.
Because she went away when she was 2
to know
years
your
old.
history.
Yes, that's
Okay.
right. To know your history.
Officially, in the last year, 20 people and 400 animals have died of rabies in this region, though the real figure is probably much higher. Rabies is getting out of control, but there is a glimmer of hope. Free mobile vaccination clinics for dogs.
There are a lot of children here who have come.
Syria, that is so. When we get turnouts there, we often a lot of children around, and they're the people maybe that we should concentrate on. We should work through the schools. If you consider that probably about 80% of the victims of rabies in South Africa are school children. And so perhaps through the education of these school kids and them bringing their dogs here, there is some benefit for it.
I'm surprised how many dogs there are that have turned up, and clearly they've been very effective at getting the message across to bring dogs and to raise awareness that this is important.
Patricia Wiltshire, a leading forensic investigator, is visiting the only place that scientists can work with human corpses. It's in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it's called the Body Farm. Throughout the world, death is steeped in taboos, though it's life's only certainty. Many people find being in the presence of death frightening and unwelcome, so it's sanitized and hidden away. A first visit to the Body Farm can be a little unsettling. The body farm was set up to study the way the human body decomposes. Research here has helped forensic scientists answer key questions about the time and the manner of death. This extraordinary laboratory has made a great contribution to law enforcement in the United States.
Well, the general public think of the pigeon as the street pigeon. They see it on the street and see it in all its tameness coming to the food that they put down for it. But here, we're in Pigeon City, the disused wing of a hospital where a few windows have been left open, and this is where the pigeons breed. This is where we see the other side of their life, the sex, the violence, and the squalor. Well, here we are in the washroom. Here on the floor, there's 3 or 4 centimetres of droppings, and this provides a perfect medium for the growth of a number of fungi. And one of these is Aspergillus, whose spores in an enclosed space can cause aspergillosis in man.
As the biochemical reactions inside the body are changing, not only is your immune system shutting down, it's also your digestive system, which is allowing bacteria to multiply. And so to insects with as sensitive a smell as blowflies, they can scent this from a distance away.
Blowflies, our familiar green and blue bottles, can take just minutes to locate a dead body on which to lay their eggs.
Not only are the blowfly females attracted to a body so quickly and will lay eggs so quickly, but also their progeny will grow at a rate that is proportional to the temperature of their environment. By taking into account what the temperature would have been at a scene, and obviously knowing which species you're dealing with, as different species grow at different rates, you can work out when those eggs were laid, generally with a fair degree of accuracy. Here we have several different stages of blowfly life cycle. First of all, we have the eggs. Here, underneath the liver, we can see the young blowfly maggots feeding away. These are the first stage, first instar larvae is here and here. Second stage larvae. They've aggregated into a mass. If I can just show you the contrast between these and a third instar larvae, you can see the size difference that they will undergo.
Blowfly eggs will take about 1 to 2 days to hatch into their first instar stage. In summer, the 3 instar stages take about 2 weeks to become the pupa.
Now these larvae have finished feeding and they're ready to change into the puparia.
Just as a caterpillar will become a chrysalis and then a butterfly, so a maggot becomes a pupa that hatches into a fly.
The lighter the puparium is in colour, the more recently it pupated, and then the adult fly will emerge.
When David's body was dug up, John Manlove examined the maggots and the pupae on his body. By factoring in the temperatures of the previous weeks, he constructed a timeline that led back to the day David died.
Ngorongoro is one of the most spectacular wildlife places on Earth. But it's facing increasing pressures all the time. One of those pressures comes from the expansion of the human population in the whole of the area surrounding the crater. There are about 40,000 Maasai who live in the Ngorongoro Conservation Area, and you can see that they bring their cattle into the crater floor itself to take advantage of the minerals that are down here. And with these cattle, sometimes come their dogs as well. And there's clearly a lot of contact between wildlife and domestic animals in this area, and disease is one aspect of that conflict.
On a bright November morning in Knoxville, a house on the Maynardville Highway is about to be subject to an arson attack. It'll be an arson attack with a difference, carried out by the Knox County Fire Department.
We're going to be using ignitable liquid.
It's under the control of Mike Dalton, who has 20 years of experience as a fire investigator.
Joanne, do you want to pour? Joanne will pour, then I'll come along behind her and I will ignite. I mean, it's a redneck Christmas.
There's plenty of redevelopment going on in Knoxville, which means the Forensic Academy can usually find a house to burn, even at Christmas.
Ready? Just take them both, cocktail on the bed, okay?
Today, in several rooms of the house, Mike Dalton will recreate some of his previous arson cases. The students are absent today, but after an intensive week studying fire, they'll be set a challenge to discover if these fires were arson or accident.
Yeah, the bed's burning good. It's burning on the wall next to the window. The window is crazing neatly. You can see the heat start building on it, and all of a sudden it went like that right there. I mean, it was neater than crap.
I'm doing the right nostril. Are you ready?
One remarkable forensic investigator is a botanist called Patricia Wiltshire.
Oh, I think she's been there as well. I think they're both in it.
12 years ago, she was using her knowledge of plants on archaeological digs, investigating the lives of our ancestors, when she received a phone call that would change her life forever.
Esophagus or main aorta.
In the last decade, Patricia has developed a new branch of forensic science based around the fact that criminals at an outdoor crime scene will pick up microscopic amounts of natural evidence, like seeds, spores, and pollen. On the 4th of August 2002, Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman went missing. 2 weeks later, their bodies were found in this ditch. Pat was one of the forensic investigators summoned to the scene. She used her pollen skills and also showed how much can be learned by observing the way plants grow.
This is the ditch where Jessica and Holly were found. And the first thing they asked me to do was to try and find out where the murderer, because they'd obviously been murdered, had been put into the ditch. How could they have accessed it? Because this verge was high with nettles and other vegetation. And the police just couldn't see how they got in. But here, I saw a distinct pathway. And I could tell, because particularly by stinging nettles, they had undergone corrective growth. They'd been trodden down, but there'd been about a fortnight in which they'd had time to regenerate and grow up. And that's why the police couldn't see it.
Some of the nettles by the ditch had side shoots that only sprout on a plant that has been flattened or damaged. These particular nettles enabled Pat to reveal the killer's path to the ditch. And by working out how fast these side shoots grow, she could gauge how long ago the plant had been trampled. It turned out to be 13.5 days, soon after the girls went missing.
And I could see his footprints. I could see exactly where the feet had gone. And so I had to sample those very carefully, and the girls lay there in that ditch.
Pat also collected soil samples from around the ditch. Soon she had the natural fingerprint of this place that she could compare with items collected from the suspect.
There were 2 pairs of shoes that had visited this place, so the murderer had visited the place twice. The car had been here. There was so much evidence on the car of this place, of the soil, of the vegetation. That car had been here and driven down that track, had evidence of that. And last of all, 2 petrol cans were put on this verge. So I had all these items, so many items that were actually related to this place. And of course, the clothing was found at the college. The girls' clothing was found at the college, and it had the fruits. See, you had the fruits of this tree.
Pat was one of the expert witnesses at the trial. Ian Huntley was found guilty and jailed for 40 years.
In offering the best food and lodging to its animals, London Zoo sometimes attracts uninvited guests. Rats steal food, cause damage and spread diseases. But not if Tino Magaro, the man from Quick Kill, gets his way.
Oh, now that's interesting. There's actually a rat in here now. He's actually looking at me. Can you see him? I know you're in there. No, I've always had a personal interest in animals. I love them to death, of all sorts. But I sort of struck lucky in pest control and also working at London Zoo, so I get to see both sides of the coin, getting rid of them and looking after them.
London Zoo can be a confusing place if you're a rat. Most are persecuted, but a select few will be invited to star in Andy Hallsworth's Animals in Action show.
This is one of the 2 rats that we're working on for this year's production. He's a brown rat, as you can see, and his name's Dodger. And the idea is to give the people a bit of an insight into how rats have travelled around the world. This is a brown rat that you can find in your rubbish dumps and your sewers, but this is a very clean one. So we want him to run, we're trying to get him to run along the back screen there and down a rope, and eventually it'll be on board a ship, which a child from the audience will be holding. So we're working him backwards from the end of the rope in stages, and he's doing quite well, but not as good as the other one.
So pretty much fully grown adult. He's had his best days. He now goes to the great rat city in the sky. He's off to the incinerator with all his other little friends as I pick them up and find them.
What you've got to do is run up the top and then run on board the ship and go on a nice holiday to England. Don't let me down. There's lots of people out there.
You might see a twitchy pair of whiskers, because living on this dockside is a rat, and he's seen Alice's ship and he decides to go on holiday. And he runs down the rope. And during the night, when no one's looking, the little rat sneaks on board Alice's ship. Now in the morning, Alice lets go of the ship, of the rope, and she goes sailing back home to England.
Paul Daniels, eat your heart out.